Hey everybody, it's Kendell Lenice, the Remix Coach. All right, we're just going to get to it. This ain't going to be a long video, but I need you to subscribe and hit that notification button. All right, so I talk to young people all the time in their 20s. We got into a conversation. Miss Kendell, what do you ask when you first start trying to date somebody? What kind of questions do you ask? And I was talking to a couple of young ladies, and then a young man got involved, and I said these same questions apply to you. So now this is the thing. It doesn't just apply to 20 somethings, 30 somethings, 40 somethings, 50 somethings, 60 somethings. The idea is to get to know a person, right? And then later, as you get to know them, you find out if their words match their actions. So you want to ask certain questions deep. Ain't no fluffy questions like, do you like onions? Do you like mushrooms on your burger? Do you even eat meat or burger? No, we're not asking those questions. Those questions, as you date, you find out about them if you go out to eat. And they say, hold the onions, no tomato, then you know, right? But we want to ask questions like, don't just assume everybody believes in God. You want to ask, do you believe in God? What is your relationship like with God? You want to ask those questions. You can get deep later, or if that moment, is the moment, then that's when you're going to ask. You want to ask like, what defines cheating to you? Like, is talking to someone else, is going out. You want to know, because nothing is to be assumed. You can't assume that they feel the same way you feel. You want to ask, are you intimate with anyone else? Kissing, conversation, sex. Are you intimate? Because we are in the days of the pandemic and monkeypox and everything else, all the other things that have been happening. You want to make sure. Now, do you know, can you guarantee if somebody's telling you the truth? Absolutely not. But you still ask the question, and then you see. You want to ask, do you have a girlfriend? Do you have a boyfriend? You want to ask, because some people be like, well, he's just seeing me. She's just seeing me. No, you want to ask that because you don't want to have any questions left unasked. You want to ask, what does dating and a relationship look like to you? What does it look like? If you're in a relationship with somebody, what does that look like? Can you paint the picture? Can you let a sister or brother know what that looks like? Also, does anyone else think that they're in a relationship with you? Okay? Does anybody else? You say you're not, but does anybody else think that they're in a relationship with you? You want to ask, have you ever had your heart broken? If so, how did you handle it? Have you healed from that? Because you don't want anything to be taken out on you. So you want to ask those questions to see if they're healed. Are you healed from the past relationship? Another thing, what have you learned from that past relationship? Can you tell me a little bit about the past relationship? If they start saying, well, he did this and she did this and blah, 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 and they don't take ownership and they haven't learned anything from that, not to say that you want to leave that person, but you want to keep your ear. You want to keep your eye on that because you want to see. You also want to ask about credit. Like, what does your credit look like? You don't have to know the score unless they want to tell you, but what is your relationship with money? Do you spend? Are you a saver? Do you, have a nest egg? How do you relate to money, to credit, to budgeting, to saving? You want to ask, this is a big one that I have on my list. Well, how do you feel about coaching? How do you feel about counseling? How do you feel about therapy? Have you ever gone? Have you done self-work? And if they say, nah, I ain't into that, think twice, think thrice, think 4 times, because you don't want anyone that's above seeking help. Because this life be lifing and everybody needs some help a time or two. And you want to make sure you're healed from past traumas, from hurts, pains. You got to be doing something, right? So if they say no, beware. And you also want to ask, when was the last time you cried? You want to make sure that the male or female is in touch with their feelings and with their emotions, and they're able to emote. Even if it's crying at on a movie, crying at a funeral. I've talked to people that have been like, I ain't cried in 5, 10, 20 years. And it's like, really? So even a sad movie even at a funeral, even, when something happens, have you cried happy tears? Do your tear ducts work? I'm just asking, because you want to have somebody emotionally mature enough to cry if that's what they feel like doing. And men are no different, people. Men have emotions just like women. And my experience is a lot of men emote more than women. The myth is that women emote more. But no, there are a lot of men who are in touch with their feelings and are able to speak from their emotions and their feelings. So it's so important. So there are so many questions that you can ask, but I'm not going to make this long and drawn out. Just make sure you're asking questions, because that's how you're going to get to know someone. And someone even told me that I should write a book of questions when you first start dating people, from my expertise, from my experience, and so on and so on and so on. But it's so important that you ask questions. Don't assume anything. Don't assume that this person, male or woman, is going to be like you. They're going to respond like you. They're going to do things like you. You can't just, that's people believe in God. No, you want to ask that question. Of course, somebody cried. No, you want to ask those questions. Don't let the questions go unasked. It's so important that you ask questions. But if you ask questions, you have to be prepared to answer questions, because if that person puts the questions back on you, you have to be vulnerable and honest enough to ask the questions too. Because you can't ask somebody a question and then you're off guards when it comes to questions. I've been in those situations where you ask a question or they ask you a question, then they ain't ready to answer, or they skip the subject or change subjects or doing that. Beware of that too, because you can't have an intimate relationship with anybody. It has to start somewhere. And you can't have an intimate relationship with someone if they're not willing to be vulnerable enough to have conversations, real conversations. And then as time goes on, you're able to see if their answers match up to their actions. And you can learn a lot by just speaking to someone or just listening or observing. So you definitely want to be present when you first meet somebody and you start dating. That's it. That's all. I told you I wouldn't be long. I wasn't going to be long-winded. I was going to get right to the point. All right, so do me a favor, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification button for me, and that's it, that's all. This is a word from your favorite life coach. This is Kendell Lenice, the Remix Coach. Until next time, God bless. Peace.